Have you ever noticed when you're triggered, your back pain spikes? Well, guess what? That's okay. That's very natural. That's very normal. But what do we do about that? I, you can't walk around in life avoiding being triggered. Let's face it, triggers are everywhere if you haven't processed and released them. A trigger is our nervous system equating something from our external environment as a threat. Real or unreal, our body has labeled it a threat. It could be an email about a legal issue. It could be listening to a story from a colleague. It could be watching your dog nearly get run over. It could be looking at your financial statement. It could be listening to your partner's car drive into the driveway in anticipation of an argument. Triggers are not bad. We avoid them. There's even trigger alerts on TV programming and in some businesses. I had a conversation the other day and someone was advocating that for some of my neurodivergent clients, that perhaps the smell of our oil diffuser was triggering and that we possibly shouldn't do it. And I guess that's what's at the root of this video. It was a really interesting thing I had to sit with because 80% of people will enjoy that smell and it will calm their nervous system. 20% may potentially be triggered by scents. A certain scent can definitely trigger past memories. Even the intensity of a smell can trigger some people's nervous systems. But what do we do about that? Do we create a society where we live in fear of triggering people? Or do we see triggers as an invitation to become curious about our own nervous system and the things that are setting it off? I am leaning towards the second because the more triggers you can transmute, then the less you will find yourself triggered, which ultimately is so much nicer for our nervous systems long term. Let's put it in the context of back pain. Let's say, and I've had quite a few patients express this, that when they get worked up, their back pain is 10 times worse. So if we look at the basically what's going on in the body in a trigger, then something's happened and our nervous system has perceived it as a threat. And when our nervous system thinks it's under threat, it sends outputs to muscles to brace, protect, tighten, be prepared to run. So, on a very basic level, you're getting muscular tension increase. You're also often getting cortisol being dumped into the bloodstream, and cortisol is the precursor to inflammation. So when you've been triggered, it's a bit like you're pouring gasoline on your inflamed body parts and you're adding a muscular level of tension that's protective, anticipatory, and ready to mobilize you. It's unnecessary tension, basically. Neither of those two things are great for back pain. So what am I saying we should do? Well, I like the three N's. Let's name it. Let's become aware. So let's catch it. Oh, I'm triggered. Where am I feeling it in my body? Oh, it's in my guts. I feel like they've tightened up. Or I've noticed I can't breathe. I'm breathing fast and shallow. Or my jaw is really clenching. Or my fists are really tightening. Or I might, on the external, have it all together, but on the internal, I can just feel every ounce of me is in a high state of distress. Some people are really good at masking triggers, and some people aren't. That's okay. It doesn't mean they don't exist. I would say I'm pretty good at masking it, but I will always go away and unpack it later in the moment if I can, but if not, I'll do it later. And I don't anymore see them as a bad thing. In fact, they are really valuable awareness about self and an invitation to realize there's something in our nervous system that is perceiving what's going on as unsafe or threatening. If you're being triggered 8, 6, 10, 15 times a day, man, there's a lot in there that you could really look at and release. It might be that your mind is just constantly putting a lens on experiences that is making your whole nervous system react when it doesn't need to be. If it's once a week, you know what? Again, it's still a curious exploration of, wow, why did that comment make me react? And in this case, the comment about triggers triggered me. That's the irony, isn't it? I was triggered by a conversation about triggers, and I was triggered about this relentless need for society to accommodate individuals and their peculiarities. And honestly, the thing that triggers me is the expectation that others will bend to what you need. And your experience in the world is your responsibility. Full stop. Personal autonomy is a thing I do feel really strongly about. I think it's a luxury if you happen to have grown up in a household where everyone bends to your needs, your desires, your quirks. It's you get away with it for as long as you'll get away with it. But what it does to the people around you who are constantly adapting and molding and becoming water or fluid to your anchor and your rock, it's exhausting for those people and it's not sustainable. So I guess having lived on the side of the person who's had to be flexible, adaptable, resilient because someone else uh, was unable or chose not to deal with their personal triggers and issues, I guess that's why I have that belief structure. So I will meditate, I'll sit on that, I'll reevaluate that, I'll ask myself, is it time to let go of this now? Is this useful to hold on to? You know, all of those questions are definitely, there's no right or wrong answer in them. They are whatever you choose them to be. But my invitation to you is to notice how triggers affect your back pain and then to have a strategy. Catch it, notice it in your body, name it. My body is feeling threatened by this email, by this conversation, by this person. So we've noticed it, we've named it, and now the third N is next steps. Basically, have a next step, which is, I would encourage breath, a big long exhale, which communicates to the body safety, a very slow movement. It might be circling your pelvis around your feet. It could simply be raising your arms up and tracing a big circle with your arms as you breathe. It could be 4. Basically, we want to breathe and we want to move. And as we're doing those two things, we want to be saying in our heads or out loud, body, you are safe. This threat is not real. I see it, I catch it. I'll choose to unpack it later or not. I want to, in this moment, release the trigger. And if you can interrupt triggers, that's step 1. What really is great for your physiology and biochemistry is that if you can shut off a triggered response quickly and get back into your parasympathetic nervous system, peace and calm, you've actually dampened the cortisol response quite quickly. If you stay in a trigger, your cortisol spike can carry on for 2 days, which means for 2 days you're pumping out anti-inflammatory gasoline. So it's not bad to be triggered, is my first point. There's things to be noticed about self in a trigger. There's invitations, there's curiosity, there's potential for growth, there's potential to feel and heal. And if you're simply at a time in the day where you're too tired, you think, God, I'm triggered again, I just can't be asked looking at this right now, then park it, write it down, deal with it later. No one says you have to be in this inquisitive, totally conscious awareness space throughout the day 24/7. I don't know if anyone is. I certainly am not. But the triggers these days are fewer and farther between, to the point that when they happen, catching it is like, whoa, I'm really triggered by this. And then there's that, oh, there's stuff to look at here. And then I will, when it suits me and suits my schedule. So can we please not go around expecting the world to pander to our personal triggers? Our triggers are our responsibility. And I know that's not a popular idea, but I don't really care. I really do think your triggers are your responsibility. So don't expect businesses, workplaces, TV shows to be responsible for protecting you from your trigger. There will be many people that disagree with that, but that's okay. That's how I feel about it. And your back definitely deserves to be living in a body that is triggered less often and less intensely. And the only way you're going to make that happen is by seeing them as gifts rather than things to be avoided. Let me know what you think about that. I realize it's probably not popular, and that's okay. But for the sake of your back, I definitely would invite you to shift your perspective. Drop me a comment. Let's argue. Let's hash it out. Let's figure it out, knowing, as always, there's no right or wrong answer. And we all get to choose our own belief points on all these topics that I cover. But I guess I raise them to invite you to explore them. Full stop. Catch you later.